The illegal rise of Spotify. I have not, actually. I was gonna say, or I could do a documentary, which is apparently what Kirby was thinking exactly. I have not seen the illegal rise of Spotify. Is that a good one? Let me look it up. Who's it by? Is it like Sunny V2 or some shit? The illegal rise of Spotify. Okay, let's check this out. Oh, it's by MagnatesMedia. Okay. Yeah, let's watch it. That's cool. Let me pull this up. And we'll react to this. God damn it! I've been streaming. I was streaming 7+ hours. I'm allowed to do a react content. You know what I mean? All right, give me a second to pull this up. Wait, why am I pulling up a whole new? Wait, I was pulling up a whole new freaking what's it called? Tab. I should have just duplicated the tab I have for the music. What am I doing? Okay. Yeah, MagnatesMedia. Okay. There you go. Alright, let me do one quick thing and then I'll switch over to this. Hold on. Here's this. Let me try something real quick. I think you guys will like it. I want to do something. I think you'll like it. Hold on. Hold on. I think you'll like it. For when we're all going and gaming, etc. Will this work? Will this work? There we go. We can now have a stretch. To be like, stretch! And then I can turn it off. Okay, cool. Alright, let me pause this. Let's go over here. And so this is by MagnatesMedia. This is called The Illegal Rise of Spotify. Let's do it. Alright. Let's get going.
Big battle brewing in the music business.
Spotify is in full damage control mode these days.
As a growing revolt of artists scrub their music from the streaming platform after hashtag delete Spotify went viral.
I didn't know that was I just never used Spotify, if I'm being honest.
Spotify's top podcaster breaking his silence.
If I picked you off, I'm sorry.
Prince Harry and Meghan also expressing concerns to Spotify, their podcast partner.
All of that causing a lot of controversy at Spotify, that the company has bet the farm on podcasts.
We started this company when I was 23 years old.
This is Daniel Ek, founder of Spotify, and in 2006, he was having a quarter-life crisis.
Quarter-life crisis.
He knew that he should be incredibly happy. He'd just retired in his 20s after selling his advertising business called Advertigo, making him a millionaire in the process. He was out partying most nights, and he'd even bought himself a Ferrari. Yet, within a few months, he felt his life had lost all purpose.
That was quick. He really did have a frickin' quarter-life crisis, Jesus.
You see, Daniel had always been a workaholic. At the age of just 13, he'd started his first business whilst living at his parents' house.
No way.
The business was making websites for other people, and he started off by charging $100, then the next client he charged $200, and by the age of 18, he was charging $5,000 per website.
Okay.
He recruited other kids from his school to
That's
help him
cool.
by bribing them with video games. And soon Daniel had a whole team working for him. His parents were both impressed and concerned. Shortly after this, Daniel applied for a job at Google.
Why
But he
concerned?
said he needed a
I'd be
degree,
proud as
which
shit.
he didn't have. So instead, he decided to start his own search engine, although he quickly abandoned that idea when he realized that competing with Google wasn't a wise move.
Yeah,
However,
that's stupid as
Daniel would go on
shit.
to try a bunch of different business ideas.
Google, I think, has actually
most of which
taken down
never
a lot of
worked
people.
out. But then in his early 20s, he hit the jackpot. He sold one of his businesses to a company called Trade Doubler for an estimated $1 million. Which brings us back to the whole quarter-life crisis thing. The novelty of doing nothing all day and partying all night was wearing off. Daniel needed meaning in his life again. He decided he wanted to use the money he'd made from selling his business to focus on an even bigger idea.
Okay.
He wanted to revolutionize the
I feel like that's
music
it, because like even with inflation, your $1 million ain't shit.
Meanwhile, around the same time as all this, a service
You always
called
gotta
Napster
invest
had
either
become
way, you know?
extremely popular, which allowed people to easily share files with each other.
I guess that's the
This
boring
way
way
people
of
were
never
sharing
having to actually
MP3
really
music
touch your money.
files completely free. And it wasn't long before the record companies sued Napster into oblivion. But the
For
problem
what?
Was,
Oh,
countless similar
oh, wait, yeah,
applications
that's right, 'cause you
then
just get
popped
to-
up, like Kazaa and LimeWire.
Yeah, you just get
along with
that. Never
sites like
mind.
the Pirate
Actually, never
Bay.
mind. I understand
It
why.
was clear that now this peer-to-peer technology was out there, the music industry wasn't going to be able to stop online file sharing. Now,
Okay.
Daniel Ek was a huge music fan himself and absolutely loved using these free file sharing services. But he also realized that all of this was having a very negative impact on the music industry. Record sales were declining every single year. So, Daniel figured the solution was to create a new service that was even better than Napster, but that allowed musicians and record labels to earn money from their music. Daniel envisioned a platform where you could access all of the world's music instantly, and that it would be legal because it would be funded with ads, and a percentage of the ad revenue would go to the artists. And thus, the initial idea for Spotify was born. Daniel was confident this was win-win, a better experience for users, and a way to save the music industry from the threat of piracy. So he felt sure the record labels would be on board.
So it's like a win-win.
The record labels were most definitely not on board. In fact, if Daniel had any idea how complicated and controversial things were going to get, he'd have probably never started Spotify at all. Daniel teamed up with a friend of his called Martin, who became Spotify's co-founder, and together they spent the summer of 2006 trying to recruit the best coders they could find. They figured before going to record companies to try and negotiate licensing deals for the music rights, they needed to create a great working prototype of their product.
Valid.
So, ironically, even though the idea for Spotify was to help prevent piracy, initially, the Spotify team downloaded hundreds of thousands of songs illegally so they could work on developing Spotify and create a working
Oh, well,
prototype
see, that's
of
what you do.
music.
Oh, God damn it. Well, see, then why would you try to make it legal if you're gonna immediately... That don't make no sense. That don't make no sense. What? That seems like it backfires. You know, like, right? Is that not just me? That seems like it backfires. That's just stupid. Yeah, right, Kirby, right? Yeah.
To be fair, it was kind of a chicken and egg problem. They couldn't convince the music industry how well their product worked without actually building it, but they couldn't build it without the music. So they pirated millions of dollars of music for free. That summer,
But why? So, oh my God. What you could have done, though, is quite easily have... Not easily, but, like, what if you started, like, the opposite, though, instead of, like, pirating illegally, talked with the artists to set up the, you know, like, just, like, set it up, like, hey, we want to do this. Like, if you're trying to do it where people don't get stolen and that they still get paid, then you should just go to the artist directly, right? Like, they're supposed to get paid, so fucking... You need their consent to pay them. But now you're illegally down. That's just the opposite, dude.
To build the Spotify
You just wanted to do
clients.
something.
They worked long days and nights at
Fuck
the
it.
office, and when they finished work, they'd often stay behind to play poker or foosball. So that summer they became a bit of a family, given they were spending almost all of their time together. And within a few months, they'd created the first version of Spotify. And it was genuinely pretty brilliant. It was sleek, professional, and had a great search engine and playlist features. There were pages for artists and albums, so everything was neatly organized. And most crucially of all, when you clicked on a song, the music began playing almost instantly. This was a
So
big
maybe
deal
it's just me,
because
is that-
internet speeds were a lot slower back then.
Oh, okay, cool.
But the team had designed it so that the music files essentially downloaded in small pieces whilst you were listening to the song, which meant there was no waiting for it to start.
Oh.
So once they'd built the platform,
Okay, so are they like the first ones to have done that then? Because I feel like a lot of platforms now, like if I'm on my because I have an iPhone, and my iTunes, I I could download it and I start listening to it immediately. And by the time I'm done, it's downloaded. Well, hello, Drippy. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. We are watching the illegal rise of Spotify. So far, they have illegally pirated music in order to start it. And that is all they have done, which is very disappointing. Like, Jesus.
They sent out beta invites to get some feedback from other people, and everyone who used the service loved it. Daniel was thrilled with the product too, but he was also extremely stressed. What he hadn't told his team was that negotiations with the record companies to illegally use their music were not going well at all. Now, the major record labels
So
who
you
dominate the music industry
started it.
are known as the Big Three.
Okay, so he did
Sony,
contact them at
Warner,
least.
and Universal. Getting all three on board was crucial for Spotify's success. So Daniel had been flying all over the world for various meetings. He explained
thanks,
free
JP.
music funded by ads, and that the record labels would be given a large percentage of all the ad revenue generated. But as soon as the record labels heard the word free, they lost interest. Sometimes they even got angry. They hated the business model.
They got angry? Thanks, JP.
They said they wanted a fixed price for every
thanks,
time
Mama.
a song was streamed. For Spotify, this could be disastrous, because there was certainly no guarantee their advertising revenue would cover that. But Daniel knew he had to do something, as Spotify's money was running out. Daniel felt his anxiety increasing, his heartbeat racing. His team had built a great product, yet it was starting to
So
look
wait,
like the business
just so I understand correctly. So wait, was it not
lost
that...
interest. Sometimes they even got angry.
So that they were angry with the fact that the app itself was free.
They hated the business model of making money from ads instead of people actually buying the music.
Okay, because that's not guaranteed money. Because, well, because obviously they're not thinking about like how much more money you get from that though. Because obviously if you run ads, then again I guess if you buy Spotify Premium though, you're not getting ads. But Spotify Premium gives you access to all the music without. Oh, I guess that it would be kind of bad for the music artists, huh?
They said they wanted a fixed
'Cause that's not
price for
consistent.
every time a song was streamed. For Spotify, this could be disastrous, because there was certainly no guarantee their advertising revenue would cover that. But Daniel knew he had to do something, as Spotify's money was running out.
Okay.
Daniel felt his anxiety increasing, his heartbeat racing. His team had built a great product, yet it was starting to look like the business would be dead before they could even
So
launch
every
it.
time someone
But
streamed
at
it.
the last minute, they found a...
So that would essentially be like, I mean, also, if they're talking about like the fixed rate was that they bought the music every time someone got, but in that case, why wouldn't you just buy it? It's basically like renting a song for the time of. I don't know. There's a lot of stupid shit. Obviously, this is really dumb, low key, right? But like, let's keep watching. Let's keep watching.
Spotify would also add a paid version of their service for a fixed monthly fee. They also agreed that the record labels and music publishers would effectively get about 70% of all the revenue generated, along with a big chunk of Spotify stock. For Spotify, it was unclear if this was going to be a sustainable business model. They were only keeping 30% of the revenue. Was that going to be enough to cover all their costs? But they really had no choice but to accept. The good news was that Spotify now had the rights to use music in most of Europe. Negotiations for other parts of the world, like the US, would drag on several more years. But finally, in October 2008, Spotify officially launched. The Spotify team then began a process called the Big Clean, where they went through and removed all the illegally pirated songs from their service. At that moment, Spotify must have believed their worries with the music industry were finally over. But that was far from the case. Over the years, the music industry would regularly threaten to pull Spotify's licenses if they didn't make the changes they wanted. Like,
Well, I mean, that's kind of the
free
point,
version of the
right?
app to make sure more people join the paid version.
I mean, that's kind of the point, right?
Profitable. For Spotify engineers, it was incredibly annoying to have to deliberately make their free product worse, but the record companies held so much power over them, they had no choice.
You're supposed to
Another
make money
example
on
was when
that,
the record
though.
companies heard about
Kinda makes
Spotify
sense.
securing more funding from investors, and so they tried to negotiate an even bigger cut of the money for themselves, even though Spotify still wasn't even profitable.
Yeah,
However, it
and
wasn't
Spotify
just the record
also isn't
labels
doing
Spotify would be
anything.
in a constant battle with. Many individual artists spoke out against the company too, and some completely pulled their music catalogs from Spotify, including Metallica, Pink Floyd, The Beatles, and Bob Dylan. Over the years, several other musicians would come out to publicly criticize Spotify
Yeah,
for how much it
I
paid
would too,
artists.
jeez.
Taylor Swift was a notable example, who in 2014 stated that Spotify was devaluing music and withdrew all her songs from the app. The thing is, it wasn't actually down to Spotify how much money individual artists got. That was down to their own private deals with the record companies. But it is true that artists were probably worse off. The record labels at least owned shares in Spotify, so they benefited from Spotify's growth. But artists themselves didn't.
Yeah,
They just saw Spotify as
'cause they don't do
hurting the amount
anything. They just
sales
kind
their
of
music was getting.
held the
Problems
music,
for
right?
artists were made even worse by the amount of fake streams happening, where fraudsters use streaming farms to replay certain songs on repeat to increase their share of Spotify's revenue, which takes money away from genuine artists. It's estimated fake streams could be costing artists $300 million a year. But because Spotify
Damn.
kept their 30% either
Okay.
way, they initially didn't seem to do much to deal with this issue. But no matter how unhappy artists were, those who quit Spotify normally returned when they realized it was better to at least get some royalties rather than nothing at all. Because the reality was that streaming was here to stay. Users seemed to love the service, and
Shit,
Spotify
that's kinda
began growing
sad.
incredibly quickly. This growth only increased when Spotify made a deal with Facebook to integrate Spotify on their platform. And then they did deals with broadband providers to bundle in Spotify trials with their internet subscriptions, causing sales to rise even further. Also,
I mean,
Spotify
yeah,
had a clever
that's
marketing
kind of like
trick.
when Bethesda bundled fucking Fallout 76, quite literally, like ziplocked to other games. Like no one fucking like yeah. Of course, you sold more when you're giving them
Expanded
away.
into new countries. They'd often require an invite to actually join, which created scarcity and hype around the launch. Even though there were so many invites that they weren't really limited at all. But the marketing worked, and by 2011, Spotify had 1 million paying subscribers. However, there was still one big problem. Spotify wasn't actually profitable. And
Oh,
some
no
started to
shit.
question
Still?
if it ever would be. Sure, it was clear Spotify was...
So like obviously, okay. Well, the issue is that no, it can't because what you're trying to do, like you're not doing anything but holding the music in a library. Essentially, what we have to do is agree with the public and the artists and everyone to because it cannot be a third party. I can tell you right now, it cannot be a third party. It has to be a like all the records and artists coming together like, yo, let's give them an option to either buy our music directly from us to support us or rent it and be able to listen to all of us or something. Because this third party shit is not gonna ever be profitable because you're gonna have to give so much to the artist itself. Like it's really not ever gonna be profitable. No way. Even upon buying a controller, that is insane to me. But that's right. But still, like that. That's like this. You're gonna have to give so much away that unless you're being supported or paid specifically to do this and maintain this as like an archive of the music, like no one, of course, gonna give so much away. You're not gonna make profit.
The
You know,
bigger looming question was whether Spotify was actually a viable business.
it's not. It's really not.
Before we get to the next chapter, I want to tell you about our video sponsor, Noom. A new and different way to get
Okay,
healthy.
thank you. I'm not
I'd
getting
really
paid for
like
this,
to help you
so
look personally,
thank you.
program, mindy, free from because they knew a brutal
All right, let's
winter is
go.
coming.
There we go.
The Game of Thrones quote, "Winter is coming," became widely used by Spotify employees because they knew a brutal war was just beginning, as an ever-growing number of similar streaming services popped up. The launch of Apple Music was a particularly huge threat, and it certainly
It is.
didn't help that Apple held a lot
Apple
of
Music is
leverage over
awesome.
Spotify. For example,
I use
seemed
Apple
to be
Music.
deliberately making it very difficult and slow for Spotify to get updates of their app approved on the App Store. Plus, Apple takes a
Yeah,
50%
almost
cut
like that'd
on
be
purchases,
fucking
meaning when someone upgraded their
hilarious that you
Spotify
would-
account, Apple was taking a huge chunk of the profit.
Yeah.
Which is certainly not ideal when Apple was one of Spotify's competitors.
So here's the thing: iTunes is already a thing that you can buy and rent music. So the fact that they made iTunes Music makes sense because they're already in the music gig. iTunes Music is what I was talking about, right? Right?
There were other contenders in the
Or I mean, I'm sure
streaming
there's still
war too.
issues with it because
Tidal.
having the capitalism of the monopoly over etc. We want multiple sources, but I just mean in general if we're talking about like
Had
the
strong ties to music artists.
how it will
also several
succeed.
big artists started listing their music exclusively.
It has to be an
on
extension
Tidal.
of your
And then
business,
you
not
had
your
tech
business
giants
itself.
Like Google and Amazon getting into music streaming as well.
Exactly. See, it has to be an extension of your business, not the business itself. in of itself is not a good business.
YouTube launched YouTube Music.
Yep, I use
And yet,
YouTube Music as well.
Despite the fierce competition, Spotify retained their lead, largely helped by their free ad-funded option. They were actually losing money on this free tier, as 90% of revenue came from paid subscriptions. But the free option was very efficient at bringing in new users, who later converted to the monthly subscription.
Yeah, but how many people are
The
actually going to do that,
overall
though?
problem is still clear. If all these streaming services offered basically the same music, what were Spotify's unique selling points?
Nothing.
And not just that, but what happened if the record companies had a change of heart and pulled Spotify's licenses?
They would have no original
Spotify
music.
Needed more leverage and differentiation. The good news for Spotify is that Daniel Ek had two solutions.
Oh, do tell me,
The bad
Daniel.
news is that both of these would end up causing a lot of controversy.
Yeah, okay, let's see it.
Number one is that around 2019, Spotify began investing heavily in podcasts. They spent well over $1 billion to acquire content, including exclusive deals with Obama, DC Comics, and Joe Rogan.
Oh, no way. To be fair, that's what also happened to last podcasts on the left, and why I can't listen to them on anywhere but Spotify. And I don't use Spotify, so I don't get to listen to the last podcast on the left anymore.
From Anchor
So, you know,
for around $100
makes
million.
sense.
The idea was simple. Spotify wanted to start owning content itself. This not only meant that Spotify would have some exclusive content people couldn't get anywhere else, but it also meant that Spotify would pay out less revenue to record companies and musicians.
Yeah.
Who spent more time listening to podcasts on their app.
Yeah.
But then the second solution for Spotify to differentiate itself from competitors and gain more leverage over the record labels was that Spotify began focusing much more on offering a personalized music experience. Initially, the main purpose of Spotify was making it easy to find the music you want, that you already know. But increasingly, Spotify shifted its focus to personalization and discovering new tracks, which is why it started investing heavily in machine learning. In 2015, they released Discover Weekly, a personalized playlist that updates each week with music recommendations tailored to each user. This proved to be incredibly popular.
Wait. So their whole big thing was the personalized experience. So I guess they were the first ones to do that then, huh?
They released Discover Weekly, a personalized playlist that updates each week with music recommendations tailored to each user. This proved to be incredibly
Man,
popular.
but then everyone else could just
So
take that, though.
Spotify then went
It
on
doesn't
to
keep
introduce
you
multiple other
ahead of the
personalized
game.
playlists like Release Radar for new music. But here's the thing. By controlling the playlists, Spotify suddenly had a lot more power, and that they subtly began to move listeners slightly away from music owned by the major labels and towards songs that were less expensive for them to license. The personalized recommendation algorithms
indie,
were biased
huh?
towards music that was cheaper for Spotify to license, or music which they kept a higher percent of the revenue share.
I see.
Things got even more controversial
You think
when
so?
the music business
Oh,
worldwide
okay, gotcha, Kirby.
published a list of 50 unknown artists whose music was trending on some of Spotify's biggest playlists. Altogether,
Oh.
the tracks had been streamed over 500 million times. But here's the problem. The artists weren't real. You'd search their name and they had no social media or online presence. Just a few songs on Spotify with huge amounts of streams.
Yeah, that happens.
Articles started popping up about Spotify having fake artists.
Why do they
It only
have
later
to be
became
fake?
clear Spotify had licensed music from Epidemic Sound, who sell access to a huge library of royalty-free music. It's a service commonly used by YouTubers. In fact, I use it
You
myself. By Spotify
fuckers.
adding these
So instead, we could just have been going to Epidemic Music instead of listening to Spotify. No way. That is so scummy.
playlists and clearly artificially boosting their prominence on the Spotify app. Then Spotify would have to pay less money to the record labels.
All
and
right.
musicians.
In a minute, we're gonna go do some stretches.
Some people strongly condemn this, as they said Spotify was taking away spots in playlists from genuine artists who had earned the right to be there, and diluting their streaming revenues even further. Plus, the whole thing was made even shadier by the fact that one of Spotify's early investors also owned part of Epidemic Sound. But this report, Spotify want to take this even further, with some articles suggesting Spotify could soon replace real artists with AI music. Basically, the idea is that hit songs will be able to be created through artificial intelligence, which for Spotify it would be another way to own the rights to the music themselves.
Oh, that's
they don't have to
creepy.
pay artists so
I don't like
much,
that.
and thus massively increase their profit margins by sprinkling some AI music into their popular playlists.
Was it good though?
But the whole point here is that since over a third of the music listened to on Spotify is now coming from Spotify's own recommendations and playlists, they suddenly have a lot of influence over the music industry. If they decided to kickstart a certain new unknown artist's career, they could literally catapult them to success immediately by adding their songs to certain playlists.
I mean, yeah, but that's like with any platform could do that though. That still doesn't give them the uniqueness that they're looking for. iTunes, I think, started doing that pretty fucking quickly. It's not like they copyrighted that, right? Just like even though you're the first, does not mean longevity-wise you're gonna stay. Because if everyone else is more sustained, and at the end of the day, all they have to do is just take what you're doing and implement it themselves, you gotta keep going with your shit. And that's just not enough.
On the flip side, they can suppress the reach of other artists. For example, they started reducing the reach of songs containing hate speech, and essentially shadow banned certain artists from their playlists who had been involved in controversies, such as R. Kelly. We know about this because Spotify made it public, but most of the time we have no idea who Spotify are artificially promoting or reducing the exposure of. So, it may not seem like it at first glance, but Spotify has changed drastically from when it first began. Daniel originally wanted to build a free library of music funded by ads, but now Daniel describes the company as a technology-driven layer between fans and artists. He sees it as a two-sided
it's not
marketplace
needed.
where Spotify gain revenue from both listeners and artists themselves. Listeners pay for access to music, artists pay to reach their audience.
See,
For example,
that's
labels are now paying
good,
Spotify
but that's
for
not.
inclusion
You
in
should have
playlists, and paying
to
more
reach out
money
to them
for
first,
higher
dude. That's
rankings
why
in those
no one
playlists.
likes you right now.
Spotify are also allowing musicians to promote their merch and ticket sales through Spotify. Basically, Spotify moved from being just a distributor of music to a platform that controls the music. In fact, in 2017, Billboard named Daniel Ek as the most powerful person in the music business. Of course, even though Spotify have regained some leverage, that doesn't mean Spotify's problems are over.
Yeah, no shit.
Spotify's acquisition of Joe Rogan's podcast has already created several different backlashes. Firstly, artists got angry that Spotify were paying $100 million for a podcast, despite the fact they received just fractions of a cent for each stream of their music. Then, some people got angry that Spotify was censoring Joe's podcast when Spotify took down several episodes from his back catalogue. But then, other people got angry when Spotify didn't take down certain episodes of Joe's podcast that they said were anti-vax, causing yet more artists to pull their music from the platform. Basically, people on all sides were angry. But ultimately, no matter what you think of Spotify,
So you gotta have
it's
like
clear
either
what a
free
huge impact it
speech
had.
or
When we think of the
not. You
history
gotta
of
choose your
music,
side, dude.
We can see the transition from
Either you
vinyl
control
to
it
cassette
or
tape
moderate
to
it, or you
disc,
don't.
MP3
You
player,
can't go
and
back.
now to
Flip and
streaming.
flop is never gonna
Streaming
make
has
it
become the
successful
largest revenue
or
source for the
popular
music
at all.
industry. And so some would say Spotify really has succeeded in its initial
Because
goal
people like
of
an
saving
opinion,
the
you know?
music
And
industry
you're gonna
from
get
piracy.
people who don't like your
Then
opinion.
again, others would say it's done more harm than good. Artists get less money, and Spotify now have a growing amount of control over who succeeds in the music industry and who doesn't. What's really interesting though is Spotify's new goal of becoming a central online hub for podcasts was actually tried almost 2 decades ago by a little company called Audio, which went on to become Twitter. To see the crazy full story of what happened there, just click this video right here. I'll see you there. Cheers.
That was interesting. That was really interesting. The economics of it is interesting. They have already begun releasing AI music in a controlled environment last year. They ended up rolling it back within the day. A day? God, like, make a fucking decision, right? Like, make a decision. I mean, damn, dude. Like, you have to make a decision. Like, I think we could all agree to that point, is you have to have some kind of decision being made. You can't sit there and flop back and forward. You have to actually sit there, make a statement, go, because then the people who you got on your side with the statement are going to be pissed off, and the people who saw you flip to their side just because they were bullying you aren't going to trust you to stay on their side. And so the fact they keep going back and forth, like, this whole thing is just not really good for them. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I want to let's finish off tonight with the Uber or the YouTube part of tonight.